more or less stay on that and some other issues, we'll speak with the Executive Director of Faith Foundation, Adenike Adeyemi. She's here in the studio. And what we're going to be talking about is how businesses are coping with such challenges and a whole lot more. Hi, Adenike. Good morning.
Hi, Annie. Good morning. How are you?
I'm great. And you? Thank you for coming here this morning. How was your journey here? The queues, they cause one type of traffic. And then if you're driving, you're constantly looking at your fuel meter to see if it can take you to where you're going to with the extra traffic that you have to deal with. So first of all, how was your trip here?
So my trip here was smooth and easy, but
Great.
I know that that's probably not the same experience that a lot of people who are running businesses are experiencing the same thing. There's the time to get fuel. There's the fact that a lot of people work in businesses that are powered by petrol generators. And so that's the cost of time to run in the business, cost of time to operation, additional costs that they have to bear. There's the fact that a lot of people also have staff members who also have to get in traffic, get in commute, are paying more money to come to their businesses and back. So the overall effect is not, the impact is across different segments for anybody who is running a small and growing business in Nigeria in this already challenging times. It's another thing that businesses will need to have now.
Yeah, and no business can just wake up and say, oh, let's just pass it to the consumers. Because even the consumers are facing what you're facing, even worse.
The consumers are facing that. I mean, we've seen the poverty statistics that we saw last week by the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics. Individuals are also dealing with rising cost of inflation. So to purchase a product or to pay for a service, you're taking second and third look to say, is this essential? Do I need to buy this product? Can I make it myself? Or do I need to look for alternative means that are cheaper? And those are the things that, you know, entrepreneurs are also, they've always considered that, to be honest, but they're now considering this to say, what are the products really that people will be able to buy at this point in time? Can we move into much more essential products that regular consumers, regular Nigerians will pay for? And then how do we spread the cost? What cost can we spread to the extent that a consumer will still want to pay for it? And what are the things that we really just have to bear on ourselves and then know that our margins are significantly going to be lower than before?
And there's no considering going to diesel, because diesel is already deregulated. It's available, but the price is also something. Even kerosene. I heard kerosene is more expensive than petrol now.
Yes. So kerosene, diesel, they've also been significantly higher, but now we're seeing the rising cost of petrol. And a lot of businesses, if you're not on solar-powered support, alternative power support, you're depending on all these other fuels to be able to fuel your businesses.
Well, even solar, I mean, how much can it accommodate?
It's also, well, okay, let me speak on this in two parts. Some of the investments can also be initially expensive. We've seen a lot of solar and alternative power products that are now more to small businesses. So we have a lot of devices that are able to support light, power sockets, electricity. But if you're also a business that is running a machine or large-scale machinery that require significant electrical support, even if there's solar equipment or products that can power that, can you afford to be able to put out the initial cost to be able to invest with that? So all round is that businesses are even much more significantly strained. And I have to say small and growing businesses in particular, by all this additional attendant increased cost of running a business in Nigeria. And again, we're also moving into the end of the year. Costs get higher.
It's supposed to be a good time, actually, towards the end of the year. Businesses are supposed to receive a boost. At least a lot of businesses
give. If the economy is good, businesses will definitely get a boost. There are things that people will buy more. So if you're in the food space, people may be buying bags of rice, but rice is also more expensive. So yes, you'll be buying some things, but the quantity you'll buy would reduce. Is everybody sewing clothes for Christmas? Maybe not as much as before. People are having to make decisions on a day-to-day basis, and those things are also impacting people that are running businesses around different things. And businesses also then have to say, where am I? And I keep going back to say that, is my product or service essential to the person that is paying for my product? And what adjustments am I going to make? Or do I even move to sell something else that people will buy? Or do I explore alternative sources for the things that will drive up the cost of making my product, so that at the end of the day, I can also sell things and be able to take something home for myself.
Yeah, but they said necessity is the mother of invention. So we do hope that this time will also be a time for a lot of businesses to look inwards you know, a lot of entrepreneurs to look inwards and see, okay, perhaps there's that local, cheaper way of doing something, or there's that local raw material that I could use, which I've been ignoring. I could dust up and add a little bit of quality and make it, you know, come out and actually have a good...
Yes, you're right. But businesses have been doing that for a while. And in fact, the pandemic made a lot of businesses look inwards. When you had issues with supply chain, when people could not get a lot of the input products that they were importing, people looked inwards. People looked inward from things around people who are making products to say, if we can't, so now even with the Russian-Ukraine crisis, we'll have to use for alternate to wheat. Let's look at things like cassava. Let's look at alternate products to make baked goods. Let's look inward for clothes. Let's not be looking and making materials that are imported. Let's look locally. But the truth of the matter is that to the extent that there's not a lot of things we also produce locally to the scale, there's also a problem to it. So I think a lot of our businesses are looking inwards, to be honest, because a lot of entrepreneurs put on the hat of what's the cheapest way that I can sort the inputs for this. But if you then move to a lot of people that do productions, people are still importing machinery, right? People are still importing quite a lot of byproducts. Even the person that makes clothes, a lot of the buttons, a lot of the accessories are still imported. Then there's not so many things that are made in Nigeria. And if they're made in Nigeria, sometimes the cost of making them because of power costs is also very high. And so you still have to make that judgment call to say, yes, I can look inward, but if I look inward, I should be able to source to scale what I need to produce the product at the quality that I'll be able to sell it with that. But we're definitely seeing a lot of people who are doing, let's look at things internally, let's look at things made in Nigeria to be able to solve our product. But there's still so many cost of doing business issues that will still impact their cost to get that good to the
You know,
market.
that reminds me of, I've not compared it recently, maybe because I've known it, but the issue of rice.
Yes.
You know, we talked about local rice, we talked about imported rice, and then there was a time that even the local rice was more expensive than the imported one. So what is the motivation to actually consume local if it is more expensive? You know, because of overhead costs, because of logistics, transportation. I mean, look at the queues. And one of the reasons connected to this, according to what is being said by industry players, is logistics of getting the petrol right from when it's imported to. We're talking of infrastructure, we're talking of exchange rates that you mentioned earlier, because a lot of these things are imported. The value of Naira just keeps going down.
Yes. So there was a report we recently launched, State of Entrepreneurship in Nigeria report, and we looked at the entrepreneurship index in Nigeria along 5 areas. One of them is the doing business performance, and another is the perception of opportunities. For anybody running a business in Nigeria, most people still feel that there's a lot of opportunities, there's a lot of things that are available. But if the state of enabling environment to facilitate local production of things is not at the scale it should be, there will be a problem. So yes, you're trying to, there are a lot of policies to facilitate local production of things, but what also matters is the subsidies to enable those production at the scale and the capacity that is required. You talked about rice, right? There's a lot of work that gets from farming the rice to getting it to the point that it gets to the market. You're dealing with things around logistics, you're dealing with things around processing that requires power, that requires energy, you're dealing with issues around security and insecurity to get the goods from the farm to the market. All of those things add to the overall cost of the business. So at the end of the day, a product that may be made in Nigeria may still be more expensive because that entrepreneur, that farmer, that baker, that fashion designer is dealing with so many other things in the environmental context that is adding cost to the operations of the business and then gets transferred to the final product in the market.
So tell us more about that report, the state of entrepreneurs. Most importantly, I mean, I think we know the problems, we know the challenges that we face. Most importantly, what are some of the findings of a way forward, possible solution to get out of some of the issues that we do have?
Yes, the bright light is that the high perception of opportunities in Nigeria is still very strong. About 70% of people we surveyed... How
real is the, sorry, I mean, it's a perception, yes. We agree, but I mean, we have to be real with it.
Perception on the side of the entrepreneurs, looking at the size of our country, looking at the market, looking at the need generally. And also, to be fair, looking at the last 1 to 2 years, even from COVID, that there have been a number of government programs, initiative, policies, and schemes that have fostered that, right? A lot of entrepreneurs are also acquiring skills to improve themselves generally and also to formalize themselves. There's still quite a lot of businesses that are still informal, but we're gradually seeing some change and some shift. And with opportunities like SMEs providing a category that allows people to register beyond CAC, it's also helping. One of the things we also looked at was the access to finance perspective, is that we're seeing situations where cooperatives are coming up to group together and support and providing financing for businesses, more than maybe even microfinance or even commercial businesses. But the challenges then remain in then supporting specific demographics like women-led businesses. I mean, the last time we spoke about women's state of supporting women entrepreneurs in Nigeria, and being able to make sure that there are certain accommodations that are made for cultural biases that make women to start businesses but not grow and scale as required. The other thing that was also a bright spot was young people continue to lead business growth in Nigeria, and they continue to be the most responsible for hiring other young people. So a lot of the job that is created in this labor market is created by young people between the ages of 18, even up to about 39 years old. So a lot of that should be invested in. And what we're then going back into a situation is coming to the point where you were speaking to is that small businesses still need to be supported and enabled through things like opening up facilities where you say, okay, well, the government is doing procurement. Let's make sure that about 30 to 50% of small businesses are the ones that are in this space. The access to finance challenges that are still being faced by small businesses. Let's expand the funding opportunities, even if we're giving debt, to make sure that a lot of small businesses can access single-digit interest rates. Again, they also have to pay back, so the mechanisms also have to be put in place to incentivize them to get these loans and also to pay back. And then also to invest a lot in understanding particular sectoral dynamics, particularly sectors that we are saying are the alternative to help us drive foreign exchange gains and income and revenue for Nigeria. So there's the creative sector, there's the agribusiness sector, there's even services across different spaces. So how do we provide more investments in those spaces to ensure that small and growing businesses in Nigeria really can attain the scale and continue to support the GDP growth and impact that we've seen, and we know that they can continue to expand on.
Yeah, well, when you mentioned the foreign exchange, you know, as an alternative, apart from oil, I think that's very interesting. But, you know, we have to cross a lot of hurdles before we get to a point where the small businesses are really contributing to it. But another thing that also catches my attention is the issue of digital identity for creditworthiness, because access to finance is a major one. You talked about the women, the cultural hurdle that especially the women have to go through and all of that. How do we deal with this, looking at everything is becoming digital now, technology is taking over? How do we embrace this digital identity to help make access to finance easier?
What digital identity does is that what digital does, it enables and facilitates information so that I don't need to know you in a one-on-one to be able to make a decision on whether you're funding ready or not. We've had a lot of initiatives like the National Identity Number, the BVN, that are in place to provide digital identifiers to people. And so one of our recommendations through our report and also through our policy dialogue was expanding it so that when individuals are able to, when we're able to better use these digital identifiers to see how somebody's financial and lending profile is, anybody that wants to lend them finance based on that can use that information to do that. There's also a lot of opportunities around the credit reporting.
Yeah, I wanted to ask the credit bureau. They seem to be getting popular these days.
As they should be. And only about maybe 30 to 40% of people that we interviewed even know about the opportunities that are available with credit reporting. If you know your credit profile, and if a financing institution also knows your credit profile, they can then make the decision on what to lend you, how much to lend you, for what duration to lend you. And then when you then access financing, because you already have a trail, a future lender is also able to look at that profile that you've created with that. So one of the strong recommendations from us is the opportunity that still exists to expand the use of credit profiling. Even the National Collateral Registry, Movable Collateral Registry, that was also enacted so that people who don't have access to movable, fixed assets like land, houses, can use that in terms of financing. So there are also opportunities for using the movable collateral registry, and also for us to learn from them. If more people are using it, we're better able to understand what drives lending, who performs better with lending, and developing very specific financial products to solve small and growing business access to finance.
Yeah, well, don't worry. Our next conversation is going to be on big data, how we use this data. I mean, that's what the Western world is using. People want to access mortgage and all of that. They check your credit worthiness. They know if you should get a mortgage, if you get a loan or anything like that. Well, but we have to stop there, Ms. Adenike Adeyemi.
Thank you.
Executive Director of Faith Foundation. Thank you for sharing your time with us.
Thank
and we wish you all the best with the small businesses. Hope to have you here soon.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
All right. So we're going to talk on data, talking about data. Developed economies are using it for developments. Why is Nigeria not, or are we using it? We'll find out in our next conversation after this break. This is Business Morning on Channels Television.